Hey guys, Zomfox here, and today we're going to be doing the first of what are going to be many power rankings in the USFL season. So this is the preseason power rankings, or essentially the rankings before week 1, and I'll be real with you guys, this is definitely the hardest one to do. To put it simply, judging these teams based on the players they got from the draft and supplemental draft is really hard to do, because you're having to judge a lot of players that don't have a lot of pro experience or are very similar in talent in a way. It becomes really hard to judge them. So before we actually get into the power rankings, I'm just going to be straight with you guys on what my main criteria is. The head coach, the quarterbacks, and the assistant coaches, to me, are the most important. Those are the ones in the team that are the most important. If your team has a bad quarterback and bad head coach, you're not going to win. If your team has a bad quarterback but a really solid head coach, your team could win, and vice versa. Then the assistant coaches are very helpful in making a lot of different position groups better than they really are. Now, I will take into account certain players and, teams having a solid group here and there. But for the most part, it's mainly due to the coaches and the quarterbacks on the team. There are a lot of other factors. This is a power ranking, so it's genuinely on what team is the best. So, I guess let's get into it. Coming in at number 8 are the Houston Gamblers. So, I'm going to reference this video a lot. At the top right in the eye icon, you'll see a video to my quarterback-head coach tandems. That video is a very important one in impacting a lot of these rankings. And to put it simply, this is probably the biggest or second biggest change, and that is, I hate to say it, man. The Gamblers are falling off. Kevin Sumlin's team is going down. I really liked him as a coach, but he didn't do a good job drafting. I'm going to be real with you. Clayton Thorson is a quarterback. I mean, he's okay. He was picked in the NFL draft, so that's really solid. But he didn't really play in the NFL. And in terms of, notable other players, I mean, there isn't really a lot of guys that were huge. I mean, QB Jamar Summers, wide receiver Brandon Barnes. He got some players, but, he didn't get anyone that made you go, wow, he got that guy. Or, at best, he didn't get a guy that if you're just an NFL or a pro football fan that you can say, oh, I know that guy. The only one was really Clayton Thorson. And in terms of assistants, because, assistant coaches, I mean, a lot of them are just I like Tim Lewis as a DC and DB coach. I really do. He's been in a lot of different NFL places. He's been in some college places, and he's been with St. Louis Battlehawks in the XFL. But aside from that, their group is just okay. Mainly just a bunch of college guys, a couple that were for a NFL team. And so I'm assuming this team's going to kind of be gimmicky, which it's no offense to Kevin Sumlin or the team, it's just how it feels. So yeah, they're coming at number 8, as I think they're the worst team in the USFL right now. Coming in at number 7 are the New Orleans Breakers. The New Orleans Breakers have one of the two guys I view as probably the worst coach in college in the USFL, in Larry Fedora, who I just really am not a huge believer in. I live in North Carolina. I know his time when he was at UNC. They weren't really that good. They were constantly overrated. In terms of the other coaches he got a bunch of just guys that were mainly college, again, with a couple more guys in the NFL, unlike Sumlin. And even though I view that Fedora isn't a good coach, I mean, it's only comparatively. I know Fedora can be a solid coach. The reason why I did coach UNC, it's just, comparatively, I don't view him as a guy that is really someone I believe in. You pair him up with Kyle Sloter as your team's quarterback, I believe in you even less. I don't believe in Kyle Sloter. Now, do I like the Taywan Taylor pickup? Of course. He was a third-round pick in 2017. He had about 700 receiving yards in his career for a couple touchdowns as well. He was, he was actually playing in the NFL. That's really solid. But when you're pairing him up with that coach, that coaching staff, and that quarterback, it's hard for me to buy into your team. Now, I think in terms of overall talent, there's a reason why almost everybody does power rankings so far has put this team above the Gamblers. It's just, it really is a lot to see if you believe in Kyle Sloter. They do have some other guys that, are decent, but, mainly it's just, for me, I like the Taywan Taylor. Some of the other guys are okay. I mean, I genuinely can't really see this team going that far. I don't really see how they're justified as being one of the favorites to win the title. At least they were when the original rankings came out. So I'm not buying into their team, and that's why they're 7. Coming in at number 6 are the Pittsburgh Mallards. I've believed that Fedora and Kirby Wilson were the two worst coaches in the USFL, and for Kirby Wilson, it was because of the fact that he was mainly just a running back coach. Now, it does give you one benefit. If your team completely forgets the rest of the offense and focuses on running the ball, your team can be solid with a guy who only is a running back coach. And, I mean, guess what they did? They focused on O-line and running the ball. I'm not joking. That's literally what they did. They got two really solid running backs, Madre London and Garrett Groshek, and they got a really solid offensive line. But here's the problem. In the same division with the Michigan Panthers and the Philadelphia Stars, those two teams are going to throw the ball. You're going to have to play from behind if you don't score early. I don't think Kyle Lauletta is a good enough quarterback to do that. I don't think they got enough receivers that are good enough to do that. I don't think Kirby Wilson is good enough of a coach to always have your team at the lead. You can have the best running back in football like the Tennessee Titans did. But at the end of the day, if you're having to keep running the ball, if you don't get a score, you're going to lose a lot of time. And guess what? Teams can come back on you if they just do their drive fast enough and then they stop you one drive. Or if you're down, you're having to throw. So I don't see it. I really do respect that this team went for what their coach envisioned, which, I mean, of course they did. But you know what I mean. They went hard on making sure they got the best talent at the position that matters the most to their coach. But with that being said, you cannot put this team that high when you realize who they're having to play against twice. And you look at it and say, oh, so now what? Like, that's how I view it. They're at a position where you're just looking at them and you're saying, okay, so what do you do now? You have to come back against these teams, and you can't do that. So you're screwed. So they have to get leads, and if they don't, they're going to lose. And yeah, the Generals are also in their division, and they are a team that have a really solid coaching staff. To put it simply, this team, they're just not built to come back because they're built on running. And when you're built on just running, that's not really a benefit. That's more of like a negative. And because of that, I have them at 6. They're above the last two teams because they do have a full identity already set, and I really do think their running backs are solid. That's about it. Coming in at number 5 are the New Jersey Generals. The New Jersey Generals were a team that it's weird. I viewed that Bart Andrus, Mike Riley, and Jeff Fisher were the 3 best coaches in the league. I genuinely believe that they were the undisputed 3 best coaches. I think Mike Riley was the 3rd. But his team, essentially this is what I mean. He got really solid assistants. I mean, he got he got solid ones. He may not have gotten the best that there were available, but he got a lot of guys that have a lot of experience in multiple different places, which is what I always believe was the best thing. Guys like his DC, Chris Dishman, NFL experience, college experience, CFL experience, NFL Europe experience, and XFL experience. James Rogers Jr., the wide receivers coach, he had college and AAF experience. That's not a lot. Well, what about Steve Smith, their offensive coordinator and offensive line coach, who was involved in the NFL, NFL Europe, college, XFL, and AFL? And then you have other guys who are in college in the AAF, like Ken Watson. So you have a really solid group of guys who are from a lot of places, like your head coach, Mike Riley, who, as previously stated in the last 2 rankings I've done involving coaches, was in the NFL, college, AAF, CFL, WLAF, and XFL. Wow. So, why is this team only at 5? The team is pretty not that good. That's pretty much what it is. Their quarterbacks, Luis Perez and DeAndre Johnson. A lot of people think that they're talented, but once again, I'm not a huge believer in them. And then their team, Alonzo Moore, Jamon Moore, Darius Shepard. Running backs, Mike Weber and Trey Williams, Darius Victor. Darius Victor was solid in the XFL, but overall, I look at this team and I'm just saying terms of a roster, their coaching staff is probably like the second best in the league, if not at worst top three. But their roster, I don't believe it justifies them being in the top half of the rankings, especially as I already said about their division. Their division has the Pittsburgh Mallards, a run-heavy team, which we just mentioned below them, but you also have the Panthers and the Stars, who are both going to have great quarterbacks who can air it out. And so that makes a lot of question to me. So because of that, I have this team at 5. They are a solid coaching staff, so I would not be surprised if this team were to come out as second place in their division to make the playoffs, but in a preseason ranking, I don't see them doing that. Coming in at number 4 are the Birmingham Stallions, which kind of didn't see that coming. I'm be real with you guys. I just didn't see it coming, me putting this team here. Skip Holtz, I had as like the same tier coach as my boy Kevin Sumlin. Yet this team is a lot higher than Kevin's team. Why? In terms of coaches, Corey Chamberlain, their DB coach, XFL and NFL Europe experience, to go with guys like his DC and linebackers coach John Chavis, who has a lot of college experience and was really solid in college. Jonathan Heimbach, their O-line coach, CFL, college, AAF, XFL. It's Bill Johnson, their D-line coach, NFL, college, a lot of it. I mean, their running back coach, Larry Kirksey, NFL, college, XFL, the Spring League. That's pretty good. That's pretty good experience. That's a solid group. Nothing to say, oh man, that's like insane, but like you look at that and you say, okay, that's pretty solid experience all around. There's a lot of different ways that they're from. That's pretty solid. And that's a big deal. Another thing, it's a power ranking, and I made sure to mention that it was on the team and like the actual everything about it, since it's a power ranking, kind of have home field advantage as long as they actually have the people in their city be fans of them. They literally are playing in Birmingham, so they should have home field advantage, which gives them a huge advantage. And then in terms of their team, I mean, they're pretty solid. I mean, you have a bunch of decent players on the team. Like, I'm not going to say that they got like the best roster in the league, but when you have Alex Mago, who's okay at quarterback, I mean, he's solid. He's not exactly the best, but like, I don't think he's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league to have as your team starter. And then, I mean, but simply, there's a reason why he was drafted. He was a drafted quarterback in the NFL. Was a 7th round pick, yeah, but he was drafted. Then, the aforementioned Sage Surratt. Another link to click at the top right, I made a whole video about Sage Surratt, about how he might be the most, just surprising, the most, slept on, the most intriguing player in the league, because his only year that he really starred at Wake Forest, he was awesome, got hurt, didn't play again because of the pandemic, then never really got his true shot, only a practice squad with the Lions. He can be solid. And then you have some decent running backs, Tony Brooks-James, CJ Maribel, and Jordan Schoon. And then, I mean, their defense is decent. I mean, Scooby Wright has been in both the NFL and XFL. And then, to me, it's just, you look at this team and you say, in terms of overall, they have a lot of just overall experience in coaching in different places. And their roster is solid enough to where even though their quarterback is only like the same tier as like Kyle Lauletta and Clayton Thorson, I think that this team deserves to be in the top 4. Because, as I mentioned before, the divisions matter. The top 2 teams in each division make the playoffs. And I think that this team is better than the 2 teams that I don't think make the playoffs in the North Division. And in terms of the South Division, I definitely think they're better than the Gamblers, and I definitely think they're better than the Breakers. They are number 4. Solid team. Coming in at number 3 is the Philadelphia Stars, who, just like the original USFL, have a really good shot to win the title again. So, let's just put it simply. They have who I believe is the best coach in Bart Andrus. I think that, as I said, there's an argument for the top 3, but for him, he's my number 1. His quarterback is Brian Scott. I am not a huge, lover of him, but the bottom line is this. He was with Bart Andrus in the Spring League. There's a reason why he would pick him then, and it just makes a really solid pairing, especially when, how I said that like top 3 a couple places ago for our coaching staff? Another one of those is definitely Bart Andrus. So not only does Andrus himself has experience, like pretty much like literally you name a football league and he's probably been in it. I mean, their cornerback special teams coach, Martin Bayless. Let's see, XFL, AAF, NFL Europe, college, NFL. Okay, that's pretty solid, I tell you what. Then you have their O-line coach, Jeff Jagodzinski. NFL, check. College, check. UFL, check. XFL, check. ELF, bro, what even is that? You know what I mean? Like, he's getting all the guys that, have been in a lot of places. Brad Miller, their DC, NFL and CFL. They have just a solid group of people in this team. I mean, they have a really solid group to just make this team have a solid coaching staff. And then, when you have a quarterback that's been with your coach, pretty good. I really do think that this team is a really good shot to win the title again. I mean, they got Freedom Akinmoladon, so I've said that name wrong, who was a really solid defensive end. And then you got Carroll Phillips and Gabe Sewell as linebackers, who are considered really solid too. Your team is just really, really solid. Your team is just the Stars. If you're going to be a fan of the Stars, I mean, whether it's for the fact that nostalgia of, they were the best team in the USFL originally, or because you're like, I guess they'll be a Philadelphia Star now. Yeah, you made a good choice because your team's going to be really good. And they're going to be really good. That's why they're 3 on this list. Now, I don't think they're the best team in the division, but it's only by a little bit. Coming in at number 2 is the Michigan Panthers. This pick is almost purely based on my quarterback coach philosophy. The assistant coaches are a bunch of solid guys that are mainly from college. That's the one thing I'm not a huge fan of. They have very little overall experience in terms of anything but college. Literally, Jeff Immermura is like the only guy in this entire roster to have NFL experience aside from Jeff Fisher. But the bottom line is you have Jeff Fisher, who is top 3 coach, and a lot of people view him as the best coach in this league. He is on this team. I mean, he's the coach of this team. And, you can say what you want about their quarterbacks because a lot of people don't seem to like the Shea Patterson, Paxton Lynch dynamic. The bottom line is this. You can't just say that they're not that good because they didn't achieve what they could have. Yeah, Patterson could have done more at Michigan, and yeah, Paxton Lynch could have, not been a bust. But the bottom line is, they're solid quarterbacks, and I genuinely believe they're the second and third best quarterback in the entire league. So you have them both on your team. So you're going to be fine if you do either one, or if you end up doing both, which Fisher said he, might do. So that's a good thing to have. And then, you get Kayvon Walker for your D-line. That's pretty solid. Now, could you say that you'd wish they had more at some other places? Because, there's a reason why some people genuinely view the Panthers as the worst team. Well, they're also the favorite to win the title. And yeah, it could be because, the bettors know that, Jeff Fisher, a recognizable name. But there's got to be a reason for it, right? Stevie Scott, running backs, okay. And then, I really do like this could genuinely me just liking their quarterbacks and head coach. It genuinely could be. But I think that that's the most important part, and I don't think that this team has a bad enough group around, and not many teams have a good enough group around them to be above this team. The Panthers won the first title in the first year of the USFL, so that's another reason to have them high. Because they did it the last time. What's to say they don't do it again? They're a solid team. They have a great quarterback room. If you like them or don't like them, I really can't say that much. Paxton Lynch was a first-round pick quarterback for a reason. Now, did he pan out? No, but he did start. That's something that none of these other quarterbacks can say they did. Start an NFL game at quarterback. That's a really big deal. Then Shea Patterson, he's a record breaker at 2 different schools. Solid. This team's number 2. But they're not number 1. Coming in at number 1, and I can't believe I'm saying this, is the Tampa Bay Bandits. I said when I ranked the coaches originally, I literally said, and I even said it, I believe, again in the quarterback coach video, that their coach, Todd Haley, was the most volatile coach. He will either be the best or the worst coach in this league. Well, let me just say this. This team's coaching staff is the best. The best. The Generals and Stars are really solid. But, like, you're telling me on one team in the Tampa Bay Bandits, you got the best assistant coach in the entire league and their defense coordinator, Pepper Johnson, who is a literal Super Bowl champion assistant coach on Belichick's staffs, and he won Super Bowls as a playing linebacker. I mean, remember, if you're a Belichick disciple and you're a head coach, usually it doesn't work out. But he's not being a head coach, and he's a player. So you get this solid, awesome guy to be your DC. Do you know defensive backs coaches? It's Carnell Lake, who was an AFC Defensive Player of the Year. He was a first-team All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowler, All-Decade team member in the Steelers' Ring of Honor. I mean, that's pretty solid. I mean, it really is. And I mean, you look at their team in terms of experience. I mean, Pepper Johnson, aside from the NFL, was also in the XFL and AAF. Then their offensive line coach, Pat Perlis, was in the NFL and XFL. And then Bob Saunders, their OC wide receiver coach, was with the NFL, the UFL, and XFL. So you have these guys who have been on a lot of different places. Frank Gans Jr., the tight end special teams coach, NFL, CFL, college, and World League. I mean, it's a really, really good staff. And to put it simply, almost every power ranking, almost all of them have this team number 1. And I'm not trying to agree with everybody or disagree with everybody. I'm doing my opinion. But when almost everybody's putting you number 1, it's for a reason. And you know what that main reason is? Jordan Ta'amu is your quarterback. Solid at Ole Miss. Awesome in the XFL. There's a reason why I say he's the best quarterback. There's a reason if you saw my video of me saying what players I'm investing in, why I got a Jordan Ta'amu card. It's because he is the most hyped player in this league, because he is the best player in this league. He was awesome. His center from the Battlehawks, Bruno Reagan, he's on this team. I mean, BJ Emmons and Juwan Washington at running back, could they be better? Yeah, but your quarterback can't, so it's not like it's a big deal. You got one of the best D linemen in John Atkins, so, I mean, and guess what? He was with the Lions. You know what team Ta'amu was with for a little bit? The Lions. Are you serious? Are you serious? Bro, this team is so unbelievably good when you just look at their roster of coaching and you look at their quarterback. That's almost all you need to look at. Like, I mean, even if you count their roster and you, like, try to go in and, like, in depth on it, it's still solid and one of the best. This team is the best in the USFL right now. Now, I do know that if this team fails, it's most likely Todd Haley's fault. But if this team succeeds, it's most likely Todd Haley's fault. I'm not joking. It's going to be his fault either way. But I look at this team. They are the best team. Their division is weaker than the North. I think the South's weaker than the North. And I think the top tier teams in the North are better than most of the teams in the South. I had all 4 teams above literally 2 different teams in the South. So they have an easier division. Their roster is solid. Their coach is awesome. In terms of, like, well, it could be awesome, or it might suck. It's either way. But their coaching staff is awesome, and their quarterback is awesome. They are the best team in the USFL. They are number 1 in my power rankings. So those have been my preseason power rankings. I'm going to be doing these every week after, each week of the season. So if you want to be notified as soon as those are uploaded, subscribe and hit the bell so you'll be notified as soon as I upload. And remember, as always, to have a great night.